really, really huge component of whether it be a health and fitness journey or a mindset and self growth journey that a lot of people are lacking is that consistency and finding a way to be able to actually approach these things in a way that feels sustainable enough for them to actually be
Yep.
consistent with, you know?
Yes. Welcome to Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards, the podcast dedicated to helping high performers unlock their true potential and cultivate a powerful mindset for success. I'm your host, Julissa Edwards, a mindset coach and advocate for healthy high performance. Join me on this transformative journey as we delve into strategies, insights, and inspiring conversations with experts and thriving high performers. Get ready to master your mindset, elevate your performance, and create a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another interview style episode on Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards. Today, we are having such a blast, or I had such a blast recording this episode with a past mentor of mine in the fitness industry, Goss. She is a functional registered dietitian and certified personal trainer with a focus on women's health, fat loss, hormones, and gut health. This is a woman who knows her ish about fitness and diet and specific hormonal issues that pertain to women. And although she is a master at that, we actually dove deep into the importance of building habits for long-term success. And I think the episode is filled with so much insight on how to actually make this sustainable, how to keep it from getting boring. So without further ado, enjoy this episode. I know I did, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts afterwards. How are you feeling? How are things?
Oh my gosh, I am just so excited to be here. I am so happy to have this conversation with you. And whenever you reached out to ask me to come on the podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. I that means so much to me that I was kind of that catalyst in you starting to, reach out to mentors and really starting to invest in yourself because honestly,
Mhm.
that is something that has played such a big role in my life. And I mean, girl, you were like my one of my very first coaching clients. So you were there from the
Um,
and you
wait,
honestly
no, keep going. Sorry, I just had a thought, but keep going, keep going. Now
okay,
I'm
yeah,
replaying history, but keep going.
I was just gonna say you honestly shaped so much of, who I am
Hmm.
as a coach as well, because you were one of those first clients who, we really dove into a lot of that relationship with food stuff and mindset stuff and everything of that sort. So it's really, really cool
Yeah.
full circle moment.
Wow. So now I'm getting like chills because talk about full circle moment. I'm like, wait a second. I'm remembering now. Nico is how I even got introduced to your social media page,
Right, right. Because
right?
yes, me and Nico and I went to college together. Yeah.
Okay, I completely forgot about that. Yeah. And Nico is one of my sorority sister's younger brother.
Yes, and he's been on the podcast too,
He's been on
correct?
the podcast, did phenomenal. All the he's you know him. He's amazing.
He's
So
amazing. He has a
yeah.
great personality. Can talk to anyone, truly.
Yes, yes. So, but I'm reminiscing and I'm remembering this now, full circle moment, because I mean, you'll talk about it later today, but being a dietitian, food, that's a lot of mindset and healing. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, you were definitely one of the first bigger investments I made. I'm trying to think if I hired you before or after my first business coach. But regardless, you were before. It was before I went into, oh my God, I used to talk to you about being an entrepreneur, right?
Yes, yes. Like this was before you worked with me, before you even had started any of your entrepreneurship careers or anything of that.
Yes.
So it's been really, really cool
Wow.
to grow in this as well because I feel like I was kind of just starting out whenever you were first working with me. And then also, whenever you stopped working with me, you had then dove into your own business. And I felt like we were kind of like both building our businesses at the same time.
Yes.
It's so cool to see.
Wow. Oh my God. I literally have chills. How crazy that this was like 4 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, girl, it was
2020.
it was 2019. It was 5 years ago. Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
shocked.
I know. Like, how quickly does time fly too? Time is
Five
just,
years ago?
yeah, yeah. So maybe, well, maybe like technically, because I remember specifically, it was around October of 2019 whenever you first started with me. So about 4.5 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. I love that. I love that we're amazing. Like, look at this. How beautiful is the online world, first and foremost, right?
It really
We've never
is.
met each other, and I've always had so much love for you when you were my coach, afterwards, all the things, love seeing you grow and prosper. By the way, if you're not, I mean, you're probably gonna follow her after this episode, but Kara always has the like you're a content creator. Obviously, you're a dietitian first, but a content creator who for me has always like you really embody educating or education and really educating the masses about like what is the real deal about nutrition and health. And
Yes.
I always remember your branding, like your I can see like the baby blue, like it's
Yep.
across all boards, right? And now that I
Mhm.
have like business mindset, I'm like, oh, she knows what she's doing, right? And your slides are always like hella impactful. They're like PowerPoint slides in a carousel.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. I appreciate that a ton because, of course, in the online space, it's very easy to compare and it's very easy to feel like, oh my gosh, look at what this person's doing. Look at what this person's doing.
Sure.
And, it means a lot to me that my content is so impactful because I really, really do. I put a lot of effort into it. And it can be easy to play that comparison game sometimes and be like, is this really making the impact that I want it to? So that makes my heart happy.
Yeah. All right, girly. I mean, this is amazing. So we're gonna dive in. So obviously this is mindset mastery, and I wanted to interview you because you're someone who truly embodies what they preach, right?
Mhm.
Like even if it's so crazy that this is what sticks out to me the most about your branding, and it's perfect. It's perfect branding. I'm sure it allows you to get more clients. Is you like now that you're saying 5 years ago, holy shit, till this day, your stories remain the same. When I look at, if I'm just a viewer and I'm looking at Kara's profile, her stories in particular, it's she's doing her morning walks,
Yeah.
she's doing her devotionals, right? She's getting herself set up for the day, for the week, right?
Yeah.
The halls of grocery shopping, like it's really
Yeah.
amazing because I think you're a true testament of consistency
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
this is what you were doing 5 years ago,
Right.
literally.
Right.
And it's
I
still what you're
appreciate
doing today.
Right. And I think that that's a really, really huge component of whether it be a health and fitness journey or a mindset and self growth journey that a lot of people are lacking is that consistency and finding a way to be able to actually approach these things in a way that feels sustainable enough for them to actually be
Yep.
consistent with.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
Well, that's exactly what we want to talk about. Yeah. So
yeah.
there's so many books out there. What is it? Atomic Habits is one of
Atomic
them, and
habits.
so many other literatures like that. And it's all correct. It's all true. It's nothing that we don't know, but it's hard to implement sometimes, right? It's
Right.
all of these small habits playing a huge role in your everyday life, right?
Mhm.
And so, on the psychoeducation end of things, most of our habits, 80% of them, or most of our daily actions, 80% of them are just habitual,
Right.
right? Unconscious habitual things. So these little habits, whether it's, I don't know, chugging water first thing in the morning or deciding not to go on Instagram or social media, like whatever it is, the thing that you do or you're putting intention towards really has a long lasting ripple and grand impact on your life, let
Mhm.
alone the things that we're not conscious that we're doing every single day that are
Right.
also creating long lasting ripples in our lives.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think something that's so important to note here with the, habits that become our everyday and kind of second nature to us is that, again, these habits have to feel sustainable and they have to feel doable for you. And with those becoming second nature, it is so funny to me because I think back to when did I actually start doing these things? Like, when did I actually start becoming that person who wakes up every single morning, who drinks her water, who goes on her morning walk, who does her devotional, who gets to the gym, who makes a healthy breakfast. You know what I mean? And
Mm,
I will be honest with you that one of the biggest pinpoints that I can really think back on is whenever I hired my very first health and fitness coach, whenever I had somebody else who was holding me accountable to these things, I then started to,
mm,
kind of like just keep the ball rolling and continue with those habits throughout years and years and years. And I will say that, of course, myself as a health and fitness coach and dietitian, it's easier for me to continue these habits because I know how big of an impact they play on my mental health and on my health. But again, I think that if people aren't consistent enough with these habits for a long enough period of time, at
mm.
times maybe they don't reap the benefits of them or see the benefits of them. And then it's really difficult for them to become habitual, right? Because they're like, well, is
Yeah.
this even doing anything for me? Like, should I just go back to doing what I was doing? You know?
Yeah. So I can totally relate. So in the field of mental health, me being a therapist and then turned into coach, I remember the days where I was doing clinical practice, seeing about 30 to 40 clients a week. And I remember suggesting simple changes like practicing gratitude, right? Which we know is fundamental in how we set up our days for success and hiring our vibrations and just being able to see the light even through darkness if you're having darkness in your life, right? And
Mhm.
I remember my clients, some of them did it, a lot of them didn't, and
Yeah.
some would start and a lot of them would fall off.
Mhm.
Right. And it was a thing of me, my inside thoughts were like, this is such a simple and underutilized tool that really cultivates happiness, which is like, why do people go to therapy? We're trying to find happy, like we're trying to have a better life, right?
Right,
And
right.
it's this simple tool that, yes, when you wake up, you do it. And I would tell everybody. And then I remember that was my kind of shift into coaching of like, what if I could teach people the importance behind why these things work? To give them a
Right.
little bit more ammunition as to why they should do these things, not just because your therapist told you so,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so that became like this whole like psycho-ed thing of when we first met of what I was doing online. Like, let me teach you why people have anxiety, why this happens. And anyway, I'm kind of going off track, but I'm reeling it back in because this is your field of mastery. You went to school for it, you live it, you're now coaching it, right? And I
Mhm.
think what's a really important factor to put in there is that even though you know all the things and because you value it so much, you continue to have mentors to help hold you accountable, teach you
Yeah.
more, whatever, right? As me too. I am so passionate about my field of mental health and
Mhm.
mindset that I have mindset coaches. I have
Yeah,
spiritual mentors, right?
mhm.
Because that to me, and it's like really someone, maybe listening, like, don't you guys know all the things? And it's like, no. And we value it so much that we
Yeah.
want more expansion in this area.
Well, and I think something that makes us again, not to toot our own horns, but the incredible and very successful professionals that we are and the empathetic people that we are is that we are able to sit here and say, hey, I actually don't know that, but let me learn more about that for you, right? Or I actually don't
Yes.
have all of the answers, but I have a team of people who I can rely on who can get you the answers. And same for me, I have a health and fitness coach. I hired I've been on this health and fitness journey for myself and ultimately self growth journey for about 15 years now. And I mean, realistically, I mean, pretty, I don't want to say like hardcore, but pretty seriously since 2018, whenever I hired my very first health and fitness
Hmm.
coach. I have had a coach ever since then. I have never not had a
Same.
coach in the last
Yep.
6 years. Yeah. And it's like, and I do think that at times there's this what do I want to say? Maybe just like this it's not stereotype, but just a stigma around asking for help, right?
Help.
as professionals, right? And it's just so insane to me because I see this a lot in the world of nutrition and fitness where it's like people feel so ashamed to ask for help with their health because they're made to believe, oh, you just need to eat less and move more, or you just need to go on another diet or whatever it may be, or you can just Google it, right? And they feel like they should
Hmm.
know what to do. And I'm sure that you run into that a lot as well. It's like,
For
people with
sure.
all of the unhelpful, mental health and mindset advice. Just be positive, just be happy. Like it's not always that easy,
Yeah.
right? And
If it were,
having
we would be happy and or healthy. Yeah.
exactly and having somebody with an unbiased perspective who can help guide you through, I mean, that is just absolutely one of the most valuable tools in life, truly.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
It's so it's in the habits that we create, right? And you've been doing this for so long. Can you share some insight on how it doesn't get boring or how to keep doing
Yeah.
it if it does get boring? Like, how do we
Yeah.
maintain these habits for such a long time?
Yeah. Oh, I love this question so much. So there are a few different kind of tools that I like to use with my clients whenever we're first building habits. And then also whenever we feel like maybe like habits are getting boring, right? And so, one of the very first tools that I personally love to utilize is habit stacking. So, pairing one habit with another or taking a more like positive and exciting habit and pairing it with a habit that maybe we don't feel as excited about, right? Like, here's the
Mm.
reality of it is that, I have a step goal that I hit, every single day. At times, I don't feel like whenever it is the end of my workday, it's like 6:30, 7 o'clock, I am winding down. I do not feel like going and getting 4,000 steps, whatever it may be. But I pair that habit with another habit that makes it more exciting for me. So for me, I love listening to podcasts. I have educational podcasts and I have just fun pop culture podcasts that I love. I will put on one of those more fun
Mm.
culture podcasts or like an audiobook or whatever it may be, and I will pair those two habits together to make it more enjoyable for me, right? Or even if it's like even if it's like just a regular habit that you do every single day. So a lot of my clients will struggle to like eat breakfast in the morning. That's something that they'll have a really difficult time with because they feel like they don't have enough time or they feel like it's just so easy for them to get up and go, right? But something that we can
Mm.
do is literally telling ourselves, okay, like as soon as I finish brushing my teeth, I
I
am
was just gonna
creating
say
this
that, yeah.
right afterward. Like brushing my teeth is paired with eating breakfast, you know what I mean? Or maybe you
Mm.
even go and eat your breakfast before you brush your teeth so that hey, I can't brush my teeth until I eat this breakfast, right? Like again,
Mm-hmm,
just
mm-hmm.
just really focusing on these little things that we can do to pair these more difficult habits at first with everyday habitual things, even something like taking certain supplements. Let's pair taking that supplement, like say we're taking a fish oil pill and you're terrible at taking it or you're always forgetting to take it. Okay, every single time I eat lunch I take my fish oil. It's like we pair these things and it makes it a lot easier to do. And I think for me, this is actually something that I've had to learn as a coach as well and get a little bit more empathetic about because I don't get bored. Like I really don't.
Okay.
Because
That's
these
good insight.
things, yeah, because these things are things that are so important to me and they're so ingrained into my routine that honestly I would feel so off if I wasn't doing them. And for me, I don't get bored because I know that I kind of
Mm.
look at these habits that I'm doing every single day, even if it is the quote unquote boring work. I know that this is helping me to get 1% better every single day. You know what I mean? So for
Yeah,
me, it's not really boring knowing that this work I'm doing is meaningful and it's actually having a positive impact on the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like I and
absolutely.
I definitely understand what people mean whenever they say like, "Oh, how do you not get bored with like food or workouts or anything of that sort?" And here's the thing, again, I think it's all in how we spin it. Like there's one of two ways that we can look at this. Number one, we could feel like we have to switch things up all the time. Like, oh, I have to switch up my meals, or oh, I have to switch up my workouts, whatever it may be, which at times can cause a lot of overwhelm for people. But sometimes with my clients, it's simply just in, hey, let's like swap out our carb source today, or let's use a different dressing or sauce to spice up this meal. Let's use a different seasoning, right? Sometimes
Mm,
we do have to switch up our workouts to, keep, a little bit more of that quote unquote motivation or excitement going. But also at the same time, we can kind of combat that boredom by looking at the previous successes, or like the kind of like where we were in the past, and looking at where we're at now. So, even if you're feeling a little bit bored with those daily habits or routines, asking yourself, wow, like how far have I actually come in these things though? And am I
because of
continuing
this.
to improve? Exactly. Like for me, something that's really cool for me to see is like when I'm not walking outside, I walk on a treadmill. And whenever I first started walking on my at home treadmill, like doing my step goal every single day, I was probably walking around like a 3.2, 3.3 pace. Like now I'm up to a 4 pace, and it feels like that 3.3 pace. You know what I mean? And I'm like, "Oh, it's really
Mm,
cool to see." So that also helps me to combat that boredom with knowing that I actually am improving, even if it feels so habitual to me. There are improvements that I'm making.
absolutely. I'm thinking about the other side of it too, which I don't know if you're thinking about, but it's like if all these small things that are helping me get 1% better,
Hmm.
for someone that's struggling to maintain these habits, it's like, well, let's take a look at the habits that you have that are putting you in a place that you don't want to be in. It's not making you happy, right? And you're
Right.
not even conscious of it. And it's like, yeah, these are, let's just say like, falling asleep and I don't know, not brushing your teeth and now you have cavities, right? It's like, it's such a small thing. It's like, oh, I just fell asleep in front of the TV one time. And it's like, well, now we have cavities. And, so it's just like, what are we willing to do to make a difference? And honestly, that is really hard. It is hard to instill new habits, but I think it's all about in the way that we look at it, aka mindset, right? It's the way that
Hmm.
we look at these things as to why it is going to better us in the long run. And I want to point out what you said, and thank you for your transparency and honesty that these things don't, it's not hard for you to do. And I will say that it's hard for a lot of people to do, right?
Yes.
And so for me, thinking about the, mentee and mentor relationship, coaching relationship, it's like, well, all the more reason to hire somebody like you if this is a struggle point. Because it's
Hmm.
not a struggle point for this person, right? One of the biggest lessons, and I'm sure you've experienced this in your coaching journey, is knowing that, I mean, it's such an, when I'm like saying it in my head, I'm like, this is so obvious, but I really had to learn this. Like, not everyone is like you, and
Yes.
that's okay.
Yes.
I remember in the beginning of my coaching journey, being a coach, and I wanted everyone, especially therapists, I wanted everyone to know what I was doing because it was so fruitful and I loved it. And like, I was like, every therapist should know that there's a life of more balance and greater pay and more fulfillment with client results and like all of that, right? Like, I was so obsessed with it that I wanted every therapist to do what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
And like, I wanted to show them the light, right? And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that,
Hmm.
right? I'm sure there's nothing wrong with that. But then what I realize is that some people will enjoy the traditional therapist lifestyle more, and that's okay, right?
Yes.
Or some people aren't ready to make a scary jump and put themselves out there and be in front of a camera. And in the beginning, I'm going to be so fully transparent here. It's not that I would like push them to do it, but I was trying to motivate them to overcome this fear of whatever it is, the reason why they weren't doing whatever we wanted them to do. Because I was like, your life will be so much better. And what I've learned with healing journeys and mentorship is that this is also a therapist. You have to meet people where they're at.
Yes. Absolutely. That is so, so huge. And honestly, I mean, it absolutely translates into what I do as well, because that is something that I had to learn very early on. And I had to be able to adapt and pivot my coaching style to meet the needs of different types of clients. And I remember, I always remember my very, very first business mentor who was also a dietitian who had built a very successful online health and fitness coaching business, he would always say, like our knowledge is up here in the clouds and your clients are down here on the ground. And you have to be able
Mm,
to bridge that space somehow. And this is something that I'm even learning, not even only through like my own coaching, but even just in my own life. Like I think about my relationship with my boyfriend. I mean, we've been together for over 5 years, and he is very different than me in the whenever it comes to health and fitness. And he has different like
mm,
modalities of working out, and like he goes and plays basketball. He doesn't lift weights. Like he definitely does not worry about like calories or as much about food quality as I do and everything of that sort. And that's really something that I have also had to shift my language around certain things with him so that I can help him build better habits. But also, there's a lot of things that
mm.
he's also taught me as well about, uh, intuitive eating and listening to your body and just like not worrying so much about, like being a little bit more flexible with things, right? And so
Yeah,
I think we can see that in so many different areas of our life, having to meet people where they're at, because in all reality, we are simply just here to guide that person to where they want to go. Like we cannot place our wants on that person, right?
absolutely. You're making me reflect so much, and this is all such good insight. What I'm gathering is that, we leaders, right? My whole big thing on branding these days is about leadership, whether it's leadership in motherhood or leadership in business or in whatever community you serve.
Yeah.
Um, People are gonna hire you for the thing that you're really good at,
Right.
right? And so this is like if habit stacking and doing these daily things are easy for you and you're someone who's struggling with that, then it's like, well, then you would hire Kara.
Mhm.
Like this is something that does come easy. And I'm sharing because when I was in the earlier years of the beginning of my coaching experience, I used to feel really insecure or doubtful or like just confused as to like why, how come when people stop working with me, sometimes those habits fall off? And I would say like, well, what's going on? Like, is it not, long term? And then I'm like, Jalissa, you've never stopped being a mentee. Why? And why would you expect, someone who's following your lead to continue? And listen, everybody's different. There has been some clients that they've hired me one time and their life has changed for the better, and then they find a different coach or a different route of healing, and it's fantastic, right?
Mhm.
I think the notion here is that you can't just stop. Like there has to be some continuation of growth in some capacity, whether it's, hey, I'm taking 3 months to myself to align and recalibrate all that I've learned. But at some point, just like anything else in life, like I want to go back to school because I love learning. Like I am always probably going to continue mentorship. Like I don't ever see that stopping for me. But regardless of whatever facet or avenue you're using to grow, there has to be momentum there
Yes.
in some capacity.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you brought this up because this is such a difficult concept for people to understand, is that there are going to be different seasons in our lives, right? And there's going to be seasons where we are hitting the gas pedal a little bit harder and where we are hitting the brakes a little bit harder, right? But throughout all of those
Yeah.
seasons, we have to have these solid foundations built
Mm,
and these habits so that we can fall back on these items and we can rely on these things to say, hey, even if I can't give my all to XYZ today, I know that I can still do this to help me feel my best, to help me feel my body, to help me feel good mentally, right? And again, I think that this kind of ties into like the all or nothing mindset as well, where I think a lot of people fall into those all or nothing ways where they're hitting the pedal so hard for, maybe a short period of time, then they fall off. And this can be, with
mm,
therapy, mindset work, whatever it may be, or it can be with overall health, right? And then they fall
mm-hmm,
off and they never truly learn how to create those foundational habits that actually feel sustainable enough for them to keep them afloat and again to make them habitual, right? And I think that's the tough love that most people need to hear, is that you can't stop. There has to be something that you are falling back on if you want to continue making progress, right? It might not have to be as, to the level of what you were doing before, but there should still be
Mm-hmm.
some continued practice in that area. And I think that that's where people have a really difficult time playing the long game, right? And that's something that I'm
Yes.
very passionate about educating on.
I mean, I remember you talking about those things when we were in mentorship, the long game. Like, I remember a lot of our combos was like, I was finally in a place where like I didn't want immediate fast results. It was like I need to build literally better habits, you
Right.
know? And as you're talking, I'm recognizing that yes, we do have sprints in our life, like seasons of sprints and then like seasons of slowing down. And I
Yes.
think maybe what people misinterpret is like when we slow down, it doesn't necessarily mean backtrack. Yeah, it just
Right.
means like you're not maybe doing so like let's keep it to fitness, right? And health. I'm thinking like, okay, so you're doing the daily walks, you're going to the gym every day, you're eating healthy, whatever that means to you. And so maybe in a slower season of life, you're not doing all of those things, but you're still doing some. And for me, what I gathered is like when you're in sprint mode, like for me, when I have a large business goal that I'm trying to attain and I'm working really hard behind the scenes with my mentors and all this stuff, like I'm going absolutely I'm going ham and it's insane. But
Yeah.
my gatherings is that those sprints that we're doing, when we slow down, just like your pace of walking went from 3 to 4, our
Mhm.
new slowdown is more elevated because of the hard work we did in the sprint.
Yep. That is so, 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 so true. I mean, I can think of like so many parallels in like the health and fitness journey of to what you just said, but it is so true, because a lot of times in life with anything, it's almost like we're taking, 3 steps forward and then 1 step back, and 3 steps forward and 1 step back, right? And like even when we're
Mm-hmm.
slowing down, like you said, that period is still more elevated because of the work that we did before. And we can also use that period to rejuvenate and recharge us and allow us to sprint further down the line. Like so
Yep.
many people, like you said, look at these slowdown periods as, oh my gosh, I'm hitting the brakes and I'm done, and I'm, regressing and I'm losing progress, which is not the case. And it doesn't have to be. For some people it is the case,
Right.
because again, that's where their mentality is at, but we have to shift
That
that.
pendulum is swinging a little too far to the left. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, I want to bring up a good point too. Like in one of my slowest seasons of life, I had a really hard year last year, where in hindsight, there were still a lot of things happening, but it felt like a hard pause for me that it didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
And I had a mentor during that time. Like,
Right. Yep.
this is another topic too of like, oh, I'm just going to take a break from whatever it is that I'm learning. And it's like, even in my slow seasons, I still have a mentor. And let me tell you, the inner work, I was reading a book that talks about easy effort and hard effort still being effort, but like there are things that we do that are hard that come easy to us. Like technically, what you're doing, the habits that you do every day, pushing yourself to still get the 10K steps in your walks, like you've built a really good foundation. So I can't take away that that's not hard. You're doing hard work, but it's
Mhm.
easy effort versus, I don't know, something completely out of your wheelhouse that would be like really hard effort for you to build a habit in, right?
Yeah.
And so I bring that up because in my slow season and slow down last year, and my mentor, who I really held me at that time, she was making me do things that were like so, I don't want to say out of character, but it was just like, how the fuck is this supposed to be helping me right now?
Yeah.
Like it was moments where I, the mentee, I was like, what, why are we doing this? Like I hated it. It was really hard work for me. And
Mhm.
I would not have been able to have the successes and the foundation that I have now in 2024 in personal life and business had it not been for that extreme slowdown. But the difference was if I didn't have a mentor, I know for sure I would have gone left in a way that would be really unsupportive to my business today. And
Yeah.
listen, everything happens in divine, reason. Like I would have still made it back, I'm sure, but I look at my 2024 and I talk to my husband about this all the time. I'm like, wow, 2023, we were in the ringer. And
Mhm.
because of mentorship, because of me trying to keep my head above water and having someone to hold me and pave the way and just be real
Yep.
during those hardships, 2024, I'm working really hard this year. I really am. But I'm able to do it at that 4.0 speed because of all the work that I did last year in my downtime or slow period, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought this up because I literally just had this conversation with a client yesterday about taking a break. Somebody who came to me and was like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I have a lot on my plate. I feel like I need to take a break from coaching. And again, I
Mm,
understand where this comes from, right? Because, like, realistically, having a health and fitness coach is absolutely a luxury, right? It's not a necessity. You don't absolutely need
yeah,
me in your life, right? Like for most mentors, that is, a probably a big case, right? Like it's like if we strip everything down to the bare minimum, do we actually absolutely need this? Maybe not, but I think the really important thing to understand and something that I asked her is number one, hey, let's have a conversation first of how can we pivot and adapt, right? Because like we said, just because you need a break does not necessarily mean that we can't adapt and pivot and make things feel less overwhelming for you. And also, number two, I think a lot of times, and this is what I try to help my clients understand, is that whenever you are in this chaotic season of your life and you're like, oh my goodness, like there's so much on our plate, like I'm going through the ringer, all of that kind of stuff. Normally, like when at least whenever it comes to, like mindset, food, fitness, normally those are the items that we actually have control over, right? So why would we let go of these habits in a season where everything else feels
that's
so
so
out of
true.
our
Out
control?
of, yep,
Whenever we can actually have these items that we can control and that we know are going to make us feel better at the end of the day. I think a lot of people tend to give up on those items because they feel like everything else is out of their control. But I always say, control your controllables. There are things that are out of your control, there are
mm,
things that are in your control, and you have to focus on the things that are in your control, which a lot of times that is your mindset and your health.
it's, I mean, yeah, the only thing that you can control is the way that we react to things.
Right.
Point, period, blank.
Right.
Right? So yeah, I mean that's a mindset shift that you offered your client. And
Hmm.
it's so much more than just fitness and health. Like it's everything. It's the way that you look at everything. It just so happens that you specialize in health and fitness, right? But like you're getting all of Kara's work of her own mindset journey and her own healing journey in the work that you're providing, with your clients, which is beautiful to me. I mean, listen, I'm biased, but I love coaching. I love coaching and I love being coached because I think when you get a good one, right? It's a true embodiment of leadership.
Right. Right.
And
And
why wouldn't you want to be surrounded and uplifted by someone who just knows a little bit more than you do?
yes, and I do think that there is a scarcity mindset in a lot of people and feeling like, maybe they're not the smartest in the room or maybe they don't know as much. And I'm like, listen, hey, I want to be the one who knows the least in the room because I know that I'm going to be able to learn so much from everyone I'm surrounded by. You know what I mean? And then you get to that
Absolutely.
point where it's like then you have people again who are looking up to you and who are looking to you as a mentor, and it's this really empowering feeling. But I agree, I feel like I've learned so much about leadership, not only being a coach myself but now having a team of two incredible assistant coaches who I have to be a leader to, and like that's a whole other ball game.
Whole other ball game. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I love the phrase, the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything. And I was just talking to my husband earlier yesterday about how, we're managing different things in our life now, and it's attributed to our growth in leadership, right? Like, at this day and age, like we have two little ones, right? That alone comes with a whole slew of
Oh my,
management, like, just like managing two little kids and their emotions and, it's so much. And I'm not going to go into that conversation, but, we have an au pair now that is helping us in the home. And, while it's a beautiful, asset to help, all of that, it also comes with here's something else that we also have to manage,
right?
right? And
Yep.
so, or like when hiring team members for your business, it's like, oh my God, thank God I can finally, take this task and give it to someone who's going to do it better and help me in all the things. And it's like, oh, right. And I also still have to keep the pulse and keep the beat and make sure that everybody is organized and make sure that we're, aligned for quarterly goals and all the things. Like, it's not, it's beautiful. For me, like, sign me up. I'm here for this kind of lifestyle, right?
Mhm.
Like, do the hard things now so life can be easier. Any new shift or any new habit or new anything is going to be hard in the beginning, but we're doing it so that there's a long-term effect of happiness, sustainability, peace.
Right.
It's like I think you and I share a lot of the same passions and like mentality of like I'm obsessed with what I do for a living. I love helping people in this capacity.
Yep.
And because I am such a high achiever and I have big goals, I'm like, I need a team to get there, right?
Yeah.
It can't just all be on me. And
Mhm.
in order for me to successfully get to further places, I need support in all areas of my life, interpersonal,
Yep.
coaches, right? Business coaches, right? Or
Yep.
therapists. Like it doesn't matter, but you cannot go, I don't want to say you will only go so far if you think that you're going to be able to do this by talking to yourself throughout the whole thing.
Oh my gosh, I feel that so much because I remember, I mean, I had such a scarcity mindset around hiring my very first assistant coach. I was so terrified to allow somebody into this so carefully crafted business that I have built. And I mean, I'm sure you can relate. It's really scary, right? Because like this is our life, this is our baby, and this is we put everything into this. And it's funny though, because I remember at a certain point, probably in the first, 1 to 2 years of my business, feeling like, yeah, like I could do this on my own forever. And the
Mm-hmm.
more and more that things grow and the more and more that you learn about yourself, you realize that having a team is everything. And I mean, I
Yeah.
I just hired my second assistant coach within this last 6 months, and it was another huge shift, but it's like I never look back, and it's something that's so incredible. And surrounding yourself with people who also, give you a different perspective and push you as well, and also make you push yourself to make sure that you're staying on the rhythm and like you said staying on the beat. And it is a lot, but like you said, it's this hard work that leads to a more positive outcome down the road and more happiness. And I mean, it's like we have to have that passion, we have to have that purpose, right? If we don't have that purpose, then what are we doing this for, you know?
What are we doing this for? Right. I was telling one of my clients how I really relate. I relate business to motherhood a lot because you said like this is my baby, and you're most definitely right. Like my business is one of my babies.
Mhm.
It was my baby before I had physical babies, and it's funny because in the beginning, in a motherhood journey, like let's say like, when a baby is first born, oh my God, congratulations. I know you just had you have a niece now, right?
Yes, I have a niece. Yeah, so I mean, I'm technically an auntie to my boyfriend's niece and nephew, but it's so different when it's blood, right? And it's my
Yeah.
only sister, and it's the first baby in the family. So yes, I have a niece to a beautiful little girl. She is amazing.
Aw. Beautiful. I saw the picture. It's absolutely stunning. She does have perfect eyebrows. I remember you said that in the caption. I'm like, yeah, she does have perfect eyebrows.
It's perfect eyebrows. Like they got done in the womb.
Yeah, yeah, super cute. So I bring it up because, in the beginning of a baby's life, they're fully dependent on you, on their
Mhm.
caretaker, their mom, their dad, whatever. And, let's say, in the beginning, whether mama is breastfeeding or not, like their whole livelihood is determinant on how, I mean, it's mama. It's mom and it's dad, and it's a lot of mama,
Yeah.
right? And
Absolutely.
so, I say that a business is like that because in the beginning you are breastfeeding your business. Every single source of energy is coming from the creator,
Yep. It's so
right?
true.
And so it's not until the business is like, 2 or 3, they're starting to walk a little bit. It's like, okay, I can kind of do this on the side. Will you play with your toys over here? Okay, cool. Okay, I can hire a babysitter. I can do something, and that's kind of gonna give us some more space and allow me to do more things. And so it's literally just like for me, that's how my business is. What, 4 years old at this point?
Mhm.
My eldest son is 3. He's gonna be 3 in a couple of weeks. It's so crazy. And
Well,
yeah, like even with my son, it's like, okay, now he's really into I was big on like no screens for him when he was younger, because not because he for him personally, he just didn't do well when he was in front of the TV. Behaviorally, it just wasn't working out for us. So we did a thing where it was like only TV twice a week for 1 hour. And
mhm.
while that sounds really rigid, it was really like it helped us as a whole. So I'm bringing that up because now he's at a place in his life where we're letting him play some educational games on this extra phone that we have that doesn't, whatever. But I'm mentioning that because it's like, okay, now I can give him this thing that for a good 45 minutes, he's chilling and he's
Yeah.
learning and he's growing and cool, great, right? And so in my business now too, I have 2 team members, some
Mhm.
contract workers that come in and out depending on like what seasons of life we're in the business.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like I can take a vacation, or I can as you saw, I was casted for an entrepreneurial TV show, and I was away from the business for a whole 7 days.
Yeah.
And that was not a vacation. That was big for me, right?
Mhm.
And there was a point where I was still trying to do all the things I normally do. And I love my team so much. Um, you know, my teammates checked in. They were like, "Hey, we actually got X, Y, and Z done, and don't worry about it, Jalissa. I'm going to go ahead and lead Monday's call, so you don't have to worry about getting all things done." And I was like, "Holy
Amazing.
shit! Like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
And then for me, it was a light bulb moment of like, wow, like this is leadership.
Yeah.
And one more example, parallel side by side, in those same moments, I was also freaking out because we had just hired our au pair. She was only with us for like 6 weeks, so very, very new for the family dynamic. I had this beautiful opportunity to go, and so I went to be filmed. And
Mhm.
I was freaking out. I was like, how are the kids? How is she? Is she comfortable? She's home alone. My husband's here, but he's working his 9 to 5. Like she's with the kids all day. Like, how is that
Yep.
going? And then I remember her texting me and she was like, Maya, my 1 year old, she was like, she just pooped in the toilet by herself. And I was like, holy crap, like I can step away and things will be just fine. And it's a reflection of leadership.
Mhm. Absolutely. I agree with you so much there. And again, I think it's getting the courage to step away first and then realizing, overcoming kind of some of those scary feelings and realizing that, wow, like, yes, this can run without me. And yes, I have also hired people who I know that I can trust, right? And I trust my judgment for the people that I have brought into the space to take care of what I need taken care of. And that's something that I feel very passionately about, and I feel very proudly about whenever it comes to my team as well, because I have 2 incredible assistant coaches who I trust with my entire life, and I trust them immensely with our client roster as well, and with anything else that I would ever need as well. And I think that's just, again, it does speak to the leadership, and it speaks to our own intuition as well in making sure that we're giving the very best to this thing that we have built, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, this conversation went everywhere and it was all beautiful. It was all so, so good, girly. I always reserve the last 5 minutes or so for vulnerability and just, for me, it's groundedness. I think
Yeah.
that as high performers and high achievers, everyone can sometimes look up to us, and maybe it's overwhelming where we feel like we can't be fully seen for
Mhm.
like what's actually happening under the hood. And so I always invite our interviewers to share a little bit more about like what's happening in their, it could be anything interpersonal, business, anything mindset wise that we've been struggling with that I can just either hold space for, give love, or, at the very best, give some insight. So, what's been on your mind, girly? Anything that comes to mind for this kind of topic?
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say, one of the really big things for me is I've actually been struggling with a little, like some of these feelings, which is so funny that we come from this conversation of like, high performing and high achieving and accomplishing all of these things. And I think that this is a really good way to show that, yes, we are human too. I've been struggling with these feelings almost of like, of comfort and complacency and having a really hard time with actually a very big specific project that I know I need to start on that I have just been putting
Mm,
off for literally months to maybe even years, honestly. And it's something that I know is going to help the business, but it's not necessarily something that is going to directly impact the business right now. And so that's something that I have
mm,
been kind of struggling with and trying to overcome. And again, I also work with my own business mentor who has been amazing. But I think it can be really easy when things are going really well to kind of like just,
let's not fuck this up.
just kind of like
Yeah.
go into yourself and just be like, just let me sit, which again, we should be able to sit in everything going well, but I feel like I've maybe been sitting a little bit too long at this point, and I'm feeling like,
Mm,
yeah, just kind of feeling that resistance to some change as well, because I am definitely somebody, while I feel that I handle change very well, I also, again, when things are going well, I'm like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I can get really comfortable really easily, I feel like.
okay. Um, so I'm gonna say in another light, somebody could easily say, and this is not what we want to do, but somebody could easily say, like, oh, it's the same thing that we're talking about, right? Like long-term gains for this new thing that we're doing that is scary and that is hard. And while that's true, it's not helpful. And I'm going to share why. It's not helpful because this is the thing that yes, you've done it in other areas of your life, but for some reason there's a reason why this thing that you're doing or trying to do for months or not years ago has not fully happened just yet. And so for me, whenever I talk myself through this or really help my clients through this, it's well, there's a deeper emotional reasoning why we don't want to do this thing, right? And or we do want to do, but whatever is, there's a fear or something blocking us from getting it done.
Yeah.
And I will advise you to not put on the hat that Kara will usually put on, where maybe it's like, well, Kara, if you do these things, it's going to be better for you in the long run because, or else we would have, you know that already. It would have
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah.
right? And so it's really more of an emotional standpoint of like, hey, girl, what's going on?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why have we put this thing off for so long? We obviously want to do it. It's been lingering for years,
Hmm.
right? And so, what's the big fear here? And can we maneuver the situation by actually getting more insight by leaning into the fear and just having a heart to heart? So, does anything come up in that aspect of like, what is actually holding you back here?
Yeah. Honestly, I do. I feel like there are honestly a few different things, but I feel like the biggest one is my fear that I'm going to do a lot of this work and it's potentially not going to have the return that I want it to. I also
Okay.
fear that it might not be what people are looking for, or it might not deliver
Mm.
as well as I would like it to. Because if I like, I'll be fully
Okay, so
transparent.
this is big.
Yeah, well, and it's not even like it is big in a
It's
sense, but it isn't. And I mean, no, I should say it is big, and it's something that would kind of shift the way that
people perceive
my,
you.
not necessarily people perceive me, but the way that I am, um the way that my business is running almost, and the way that we are, like, what programs that we're offering and everything of that sort. So I think that's something that's really fearful for me, is like, what if I put in all of this work and, what if the return on it isn't what I expect?
Mm. So the reason why I said this is a big thing, I could hear it in your hesitation in speaking about it. There's a lot of like doubt of like, well, it's this thing, and then you're like, well, like it, and it's, I'm loving all of it because you're processing in real time what this thing really is for you. And
Yeah.
your business mentor, I'm sure, they're advising or whatever may have you, but it seems like you've had this idea, you said years.
Hmm.
Like, come, I've been putting on for a couple of months, kind of years.
Yeah.
So I would argue that it's probably an intuitive thing too, that you're probably also just being pushed by also in mentorship. And so that to me is a good sign because it
Yes.
was something that you already kind of had an idea for. And now, divine timing, God put this person in your path to also kind of help your hand through this thing. And it's like, do I take the leap
Yeah.
of faith now? To answer your question on like, what if I put all this work and it doesn't work? Kara, I would say look at your trajectory and look at your history.
Yeah.
Nothing that you've done that you put a lot of hard work into has not worked out, even if it has quote unquote failed. There's been learning lessons and it's just a pivot.
Absolutely. I love that so much because I do. And it's so funny because it's like, that's the same thing that I tell a lot of my clients whenever they're fearful or they feel like they won't be able to reach this goal. I'm like, look at all of the goals that you've already achieved. And I always say that it's so much more difficult to take our own advice. I'm always like, look at the proof. And I have to do that exact same thing. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I'd say look at the proof, but more on the emotional side because I see that's what we need more. It's like just hold yourself that this is a really big move for you. It is scary and
Yeah,
just honor that.
for sure.
I don't know, you don't have to share what it is, but I get the feeling it's when I said an identity shift, it's like this is going, yeah, an identity shift for your business.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely agree with
And
that. And
that's
just
scary.
yeah, and just the way that we bring clients in, and the way that we educate clients and everything of that sort. So it's definitely scary,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's a
Well,
good
I
scary.
love you, girly.
I love
It's
you
a
so
good
much.
scary. I could literally see it in your face and your eyes. And I'm like, this
Yeah.
girl cares so much about
Yeah.
her clients and what she's built as you should. And it's
Mhm.
like, wow, like for me on the outside looking in, girly, I'm like, you can't fuck this up. You
Yeah.
love this so much. You can't mess this up. So I hope that, keep me updated, please. I'd love to know what's happening.
Always.
But, yeah, but I thank you for this conversation. I think it was so enlightening just to be able to interview you and see what it's like behind the scenes and sharing your mindset of how you've worked your way up to success, maintained success, and just being really honest about all the things that we go through as leaders and coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. This was so, so, so much fun. And I just appreciate you so much and all of your insights. And thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely, girly. So, one more thing before we close, where can individuals find you if they want to work with you, get to know you better?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on Instagram and TikTok at Kara Goss _RD. I do have my own podcast. It is called the Not Your Quick Fix podcast. I co-host that with my best friend and former health and fitness coach. And I also do have a Facebook group. It is called Functional Fat Loss Secrets for Women. And I have a website, karagossrd.com. So all of the places that you can find me.
Awesome. And they will also be in our show notes. Thank you, Kara, once again. Sending you so much love, and I can't wait for this expansion that I believe you're going to have very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast to receive future episodes packed with valuable insights. Remember to follow us on social media at thehealthy.highperformer for more inspiration, tips, and updates. If you found this episode helpful, we'd appreciate it if you could share it with your network and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us as we continue to empower high performers like you. Until next time, keep mastering your mindset and thriving as a healthy high performer.